What's up guys, my name is Amichai, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about something extremely important, and that is the future of product development. It sounds large, but we're going to break it down. This is extremely important. The roles are changing, and if what I believe is happening is accurate, this has huge implications on the market and the various positions. So without further ado, let's jump right in and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So traditionally in product development, you have the following. You have the developers, you have the product managers, finally, you have the UI UX designer. So you have these three roles, and these roles together build the product. But this isn't what this actually looks like. So what it actually looks like in an organization, and just in general, when you have the three positions established, is the following. You have the product manager and the designer working together to understand what the interface should look like. Now, in practice, it isn't really only the UI UX designer and the product manager. You also have over here management, and they, of course, are also stakeholders in the product, and they help make the decisions. They are great at making decisions, but they cannot build. For that, you have the developers. If you're working in a large organization, then you'll have the software architect. This can be someone who is literally a software architect, and that's their position. That's what they do all day. That's one option. The other option is you just have various senior developers, and they are the ones that are architects of the system. They make the decisions in practice. I'm just going to put this here as the decision makers of what the software needs to look like. And below this, you have just the developers, and they are the ones that are actually developing the code base. It can be also the architect being the one that's implementing, but I'm doing the separation between those who make the decisions of what the architecture should look like of the software and those who are actually writing the code. Now, of course, there's nuance. It changes from team to team. It changes in large organizations, in startups. This will depend heavily on where you're working, but in general, this is the structure of product development. Now, why is this so important to understand? Because you usually have one product manager and one designer, and you have usually just one or a few people who are in charge of the architecture of the product. And then you have several developers who are working most of the time writing code. The bottleneck to creating products is usually over here. So this traditionally is very expensive. It's expensive in terms of time, and it's expensive for the companies in terms of the salaries they need to pay, the equipment they need to buy, and the talent in the end that they need to acquire. If you have a software architect, you may have one software architect for multiple products, and then they switch between the products depending on where they're needed. And the same for product managers and UI UX designers. So you may have the same designer working on multiple products, same product manager responsible, let's say, about for 2 products, and then you have the developers dedicated per project. So you may actually have half a product manager, half a designer, half a software architect, and then you have, let's say, 20 developers. So the ratio is a huge imbalance. Now is where this sadly becomes very problematic. And if you're anywhere in this cycle, it's crucial to understand what's happening. If you're not seeing it yet, then I believe sadly that you're going to see this soon. So if we look at product development as sort of a slice from an onion, then we have something like this. Let me move things around, and I want you to stay oriented, so I'll do this live and not off screen. So we have the UI UX designers over here. We have the product managers and management over here. We have software architects over here and developers over here. Same thing we've been talking about up until now, but over here, this is illustrated as follows. We have the outer circle being management and product managers, those who are in the end in the position to decide what happens to the product, how it happens, and what the right behavior should be. So these positions, even if they have amazing instincts and insights into how the user behavior should be, usually for important user-facing decisions or product decisions, in the end, they can surface what they think is right, but the actual decision, those who have the authority to say yes or no, are usually the product managers and management. This will change, of course. The lines are blurry depending on the company. There are so many different types of organizations and different teams the way they're built. But in general, this is what it looks like. Now, before I elaborate and tell you why I think this is such a huge shift and why I think that your employment may be in danger in the coming years due to the shifts that are happening, maybe I'll say a word about myself because I haven't introduced myself and you probably don't know who I am in this brand new channel. So my name is Amichai. I'm a software developer for 10 years now. I have several courses on software architecture, design patterns, clean architecture, domain-driven design. I also have a YouTube channel focused specifically on software development. But 5 years ago, I started working also as a UI UX designer for my courses, for my videos, I created UI, UX designs, presentations, infographics, etc. This is where I start using Figma heavily. This is about, let's say, 5-6 years ago. And in the past 2 years, then I'm the CEO of a startup company called Brilliant. And in this company, we are building the tool that you currently see on the screen, which is a Figma competitor, 99% feature parity, vector tool, pen tool, auto layout, components, design systems, all of the features that Figma has, we have as well. Why am I saying this? Also because you should definitely check it out. So I'm pushing a small promotion for the Brilliant, but also because this required working on everything. So just from a technical complexity, as someone who has taught thousands of students software architecture and teaching architects, etc., this is something that's extremely hard to build. This isn't something that you can vibe code when you wake up in the morning. But it's me and my wife building this in around a year and a half from scratch to 99% feature parity with Figma. This would have been impossible in any other era. And that's a sort of unique perspective that I think that I have coming into this video. Okay, so enough beating around the bush. Now let's talk about what's happening. So if you think about the position of developers, the position of developers is gone, basically. If you know how to work with AI properly and you know computer science, you no longer need to write code yourself. If you are, sadly, you're wasting your time. You can disagree. I'd love to hear your comments and why you think that's wrong. But in practice, and this is from my experience, if you're sitting and writing code manually, you're completely wasting your time, which means that all the developers are being pushed to be software architects. So if you're a developer, it's more important than ever to understand the architecture, design patterns, software architecture in general, how to build systems, how to design the systems, etc. But also this is becoming extremely automated with AI. So you can brainstorm with AI. AI will give you suggestions. It will think through it. The models are becoming extremely good at this as well, which means that also those who are software architects and also those who are developers, everyone's pushed up to be a product manager. Now, I'm not saying that anyone can be a product manager. I'm saying that if you know how to build software properly and you know software architecture, you know the software part of it, then you'll find yourself, and you're probably already finding yourself, being more of a product manager, looking at the end behavior, looking at what the user would likely want to see, and then prompting it and validating end-to-end and writing the tests or having AI write the tests, making sure that the behavior from the user's point of view makes sense for your product. Now, I'm reminding you again that we have millions of developers that are currently all being pushed up to be product managers. So this alone has huge implications. We need to think about it in the macro. What will happen to jobs? What will happen to companies? What companies who are public companies that need to please their shareholders, what they will have to do to increase the price of their stock. So getting rid of 20% of developers, when that means that your profit margins are going to increase significantly, that sadly, that's the reality. So many companies are likely doing the math. And unfortunately, this is the future. That's why I think it's so important to understand what's happening and to understand the new positions that are being created as we speak. So this is what I see as like the great exodus, everyone being pushed up to be a product manager. There's this merge happening where there's one ideal position where if you can make the decisions for the product, know what it should look like in terms of UI, you can build something, you can build a brand, you can follow the brand guidelines, etc. And you're able to think abstractly about large pieces of software, then you are in the ultimate position. So what I believe is happening is there's a brand new position being established, and that is the product owner, right? So you're the person that's responsible for the entire thing end to end. What would traditionally take 50 people can be done by one person. Now, why am I saying that a UI UX designer is best positioned? Here's why. Because a UI UX designer, you do not know this if you're not a UI UX designer, but a UI UX designer doesn't know only how to build things in Figma or whatever. They also know the theory behind which colors to use, the spacing, what will drive the user clicking a button or not clicking a button, what the typography should be, what the hierarchy should be. Being able to take an interface and take the abstract idea of the interface that should be and create concrete examples that look good, that drive user engagement, that becomes extremely complex and is a combination of intuition and theory and much more. And UI UX designers already have all of this. So this is what they do for a living. They listen to what the product manager has to say. They sit and they hear the managers making decisions, and they also, of course, weigh in, etc. But in the end, there's some abstract idea of the product, and now they need to come up with the interface or the options for an interface and present them to management. Now, AI is changing this position as well. So coming up with the interface is much simpler than it used to be. You can just describe your idea, and then AI will come up with 10 different options. But here's the thing about UI UX. If you've tried using any of the tools today, using the latest and greatest models, the results you get are incredible for code, but not incredible for design. In general, you cannot just ask the agent to design something like you ask it to implement something, okay? So as a software architect myself, I can lay out the architecture, explain to the AI what I want, and the AI will build it really, really well. But for UI UX, that's not the case. And you want to manually tweak things, which means that unlike developer jobs, this isn't easily automatable. Also, product management, the decisions about how the user would interact with the product, etc. This is also not as automatable as the development process, which means that you won't fire your UI UX designer, but you will fire 20% of the developers. Now, I don't mean to say this lightly. These are people's jobs in the end, but this is also, again, sadly, the reality. So again, we have the UI UX designers that are harder to replace, and they know the theory. They know how to look at a design generated by AI and say, this is complete slop, or it won't convert well, and this will work well. They can say, this is almost right. Let me just make a few tweaks. They'll update the vectors. They'll update the colors. They'll update the typography. They will make the required changes, and they have the eye to say, yes, now it looks good. Now, all these roles are completely arbitrary if you think about it. So we, as a society, we fell into these positions. We as a society could have decided to call this PM UI UX, and then there would be just one position doing the entire thing. And these positions can and will change with AI. And if my analysis is right, then UI UX designers are the most important in the product development lifecycle. Now you may be saying, Amichai, you're building a design tool. Obviously you think that UI UX designers are the most important. That's your interest. It's true, it's my interest, but this is the reason why I'm building this tool. So I'm building what I believe to be the ultimate interface for product development. Once you have a design, then this entire part is becoming extremely simple. But building the interface and iterating on it and brainstorming and deciding what direction to go, this is becoming very, very rare, and it's harder to replace because AI just doesn't have the training data like it has over here. So am I objective? 100% no. But this is why I've been spending the past 2 years on this company, right? Because this is what I believe is the direction that we're going. Of course, I don't see the future. I don't know what the models will look like and if we'll ever reach some of the benchmarks that I think we're going to reach. But this is just the trend as I see it. So that's my thoughts. I would love to hear in the comments what you think. And if you disagree, I'm sure this is going to be a heated discussion. Then definitely let me know in the comments what you think. And let's talk about it. Guys, we got to do something or the machines are coming for us. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.